everyone. We're here at the Putnam County YMCA with their executive director, Nicole Fry. Hey, Nicole.
Hi. How
How's
are
it going?
You? Good.
So we designed this Y. It has been a 14-month construction process.
Yes.
It's completely done. They had the ribbon cutting. People are using it. It's fantastic. And we thought we'd come down and talk to Nicole a little bit about her experience and what she's learned. So with that in mind, a couple warm-up questions.
Okay.
How did you get into the YMCA space?
That is a great question. So I went to Indiana State. I started off as a psychology major. And I had work study, and I started working at the Boys and Girls Club. And it was that experience working at the Boys and Girls Club that I realized not every child grew up as fortunate as I did. And so I asked that individual, the program director, like, what did he major in? And he said recreation and sports management. So I went in and I changed my major. And so as I proceeded through school, I needed to get my internship. And so that's whenever I called up the Clay County YMCA, because I was living in Brazil at that time. I had never had an experience with the Y. And so I started off with the Y as an intern.
That's fantastic. And so when you graduated, did you go right into the Y space? Did you start working for the Y?
I did. So I started off as an intern. I was taking care of youth sports at that time. My first project was to host the first ever youth triathlon. So that was a fun experience for me. And I didn't want to leave the Y after my internship was over. I was a young mom at the time, so I needed full-time work.
Oh, yeah.
And there's not a lot of full-time jobs at the Y. So they were able to put together 2 part-time jobs for me. I was able to be their sports coordinator, and then I was a site director at one of our after-school locations. And then I needed a job with insurance. So I left the Y for a little bit of a period of time. And then the program director position opened back up at the Y, and I was very excited for that, right? What I was looking for. So I applied for the position and got hired on as a program director at that time.
And when we met, you were the executive director at the Brazil Y?
Yes, I was.
At Clay County? Mm-hmm. So at some point during this construction process, during designing construction, Ryan came to you, Ryan Penrod, and said, hey, would you consider being the executive director of this new facility? Yeah. What was that decision making like for you?
You know, that was very exciting for me, honestly, because it was after our interior design meeting, and we were picking out all of the fixtures for the Y, and specifically, you know, we have a fireplace here, and so that's how Ryan started that conversation. Wouldn't you love to be at the Y with the fireplace? And the fun caveat is I grew up in Greencastle, so this is my hometown, and whenever he mentioned that, it was already in my heart that I would love to be in this space. So the fact that he was thinking that way too, it was just a heck yeah for me at that point in time, just to be able to bring the YMCA to the community that I grew up in was an interesting, fun task that I wanted to take on.
So you came in at a really interesting part of the project because the conceptual design had been done. Mm-hmm. We were in the middle of finalizing the drawings. We were doing interior design, as you say, because we involved you with that. I think this would be the part that viewers would be interested in, which would be, when you got here, what were your lessons learned? You were thrust in the middle of a construction project with some design elements at the end. What was completely shocking to you? What was interesting to you? What'd you get out of it?
Yeah, I think, you know, I needed to ask more questions so that I understood the full process. Lots of times I didn't understand what came with the package and what would we need to purchase later. So asking a lot of questions from you and the construction team, you guys were great at holding our hand, or my hand, throughout that process. I finally learned towards the end what that key meant and how the letters went with the specific locations. So I just enjoyed the entire process, honestly, and just seeing the building come to life as I would come here during the construction. And, you know, when we were doing the interior design and having a conception of the way that it looked, but then coming and just seeing the big box and thinking, I think a room is going to go there. Yeah, it was fun.
So if an executive director was getting ready to be thrust into this process, what would you tell them? What would you tell them to look out for? What would you tell them not to do?
Yeah.
Things that you may have learned?
I would tell them to ask all of the questions. I don't think that there is a dumb question that you could ask. I think, you know, initially I was a little bit nervous to ask the questions because I assumed it had already been asked. But if you don't understand what's going on, make sure that you're asking the questions.
That seems completely reasonable. I think another thing that people might be interested in is you open this facility, right? So you haven't done this 20 times.
No.
This is the first new facility that the association here has opened in a while. What are some words of wisdom for someone moving into a new facility?
Yeah. Think of all of the things and think about training the humans as they come into your building. Because I come from the YMCA world where I already inherited our members, right? So they were trained how to use our facility. And I realized that being in a new community, they don't know our rules, they don't know our expectations. And so just making sure that you're prepared for that. Signage is great.
Yeah.
And making sure that people understand the flow of your building. Yeah.
Some challenges we see a lot, speaking of signage, is when we get a project, it's often called one thing. And then at some point during construction, there's a new name.
Yeah.
Whether there's a donor that came forward or they're thinking broader about the community. So coordinating that signage with people like yourself who may have made a decision, but we don't know it, or we've made a decision and not told you.
Yeah.
Donor signage is really important, and it's kind of a huge project in and of itself. Those are things that take a lot of time. There's a cost associated.
Yeah.
Maybe we should get started on that a little earlier.
I agree with that, yeah. Because I remember coming and asking about our sign, and Tracy with the construction team said, yeah, that's coming. It says Greencastle YMCA. And I was like, oh, no, we're the Putnam County YMCA, right? So we were able to take care of that quickly. But you're right. With the donor signage, I think it's important. That was one thing that made my belly hurt prior to us opening, was how do I make sure that I'm acknowledging my donors as soon as they come in our building. And so, you know, Wade gave me the great idea of temporary signage, right? I don't have to have the permanent signage up there, just a way to acknowledge them from the moment our doors were open. So being able to think outside the box as well to meet the goal and make that a deliverable for you.
Well, I think that's a great point too, is bringing in the state association.
Yeah.
And just getting lessons learned and wisdom and experience from them too. Let's not try to do our own thing. Let's use everybody's best talents as best we can.
Yeah. Well, and that's the wonderful thing about the YMCA is we love to share information, right? We don't want anybody else to have to reinvent the wheel. So
yeah, it's true. That's absolutely true. You've got a really robust healthcare partner here on the site. Putnam County Hospital has about 11,000 square feet of physical therapy, family practice, prompt care, occupational medicine.
Yeah.
What are some of the early successes that you have seen with that?
Yeah, they have been great partners with us. With their occupational health, they're inviting a lot of the industry out here, because the thing that the community is excited about with our location and the hospital part of it is those services have moved closer to the industry out here. And so as they're bringing their partners out who are already using their side of the facility, they're bringing them over to the YMCA to let them tour our building too. So the exposure that they've given us has been phenomenal, and it has been extremely exciting to bring the industry over to our side of the building so that they can see what the YMCA has to offer, because I often forget that there's a lot of people in this community who have never had an experience with the YMCA before.
Well, they've talked about it here for, I don't remember what we heard, 20, 30 years having a YMCA. And I can recall reading social media, they were digging the foundations and people were still like, they're not going to build it. Well, I'm pretty sure they're putting the concrete in the ground. We're probably going to build the thing.
Yeah. My parents live in the community, and so the conversations that I would even have with my father, he's just like, they say that's not going to happen. And I'm like, well, this is what's going on our side. So just wait.
That's funny. What, if you had to do it all over again, and be brutally honest, what would you do different in this facility? I want people to watch this and get some constructive knowledge on it.
Yeah, I believe I would change our wellness space, because we do have this beautiful open concept space, which is inviting for everybody. But oftentimes I'm finding kids who are too young to be in those spaces because there isn't any type of a visual barrier for them. So reinforcing those rules is something that we've had to do, because it's just automatic that the kids are running into those spaces.
Yeah, I agree. When I come here and look at it now, and I'm not satisfied with anything that we do, I often wonder, would it have made sense to put the program rooms on the first floor and the wellness up on the second floor with the views in the expanse of glass? That would have been something fun to look at.
Yes, it would have been. Everybody enjoys the windows. I think that that's one of the things that everybody just, intakes with that.
Yeah, and now we're getting ready to put a pool on the front. There wasn't a pool in the original design, although we had a space for it. We knew about what it was going to be. So in, I don't know, 5 months, 6 months, you're going to be under construction again.
Yes.
What are you looking forward to in that process? What are you dreading about having an active construction site on your...
I'm looking forward to just making sure that the community knows that the pool is actually going to happen, right? Because the building project took so long. Even though they've heard about the potential pool, I think they're still a little bit doubtful. So I'm excited for them to see the construction team out here and believe that that's going to happen. I think what I'm fearful of is just the construction being around while we're open, right? It's right there next to Child Watch. So just making sure that that's not a scary process for our kiddos, and any of the unknowns that might happen from a construction, like what if they hit a water main or something of that nature. Overall, I think it's going to be completely positive and we can coexist together.
I think so. I think that in projects like this, with interim life safety and all the things we can put in place, we know we've got the utility lines far enough away from it, we should be okay. There will be a dirty period for construction. There will be a noisy period, and we'll just have to coordinate with that with you. So that'll be interesting.
It will be interesting.
And it will be noisy and dirty at the least opportune times.
That's the way it works in the Y world. We're ready for it.
All right. Any closing words of wisdom for anybody that might be watching?
I think that your team is great, and I think that I love the fact that you understand the Y language. So as much as you are a neutral party for everybody that's trying to build, and especially whenever there's partnerships like ours, right? You had 3 entities that you had to keep happy. So I love the fact that you understand the Y and can put that into practice with our buildings.
Well, thank you. That's great. I will say in this project, it was not that difficult. Even though the city was paying for everything and operating it as their building, they were really constructive and excited about being a partner. The hospital was very excited about being out here. Obviously, the Y was overjoyed to be getting a new facility. So we didn't have to manage any tension, really. It was just how to get what we all want the best possible way.
Yeah.
And so, great team. It was a joy to work on. And if you guys want to do 4 or 5 more of these, we'd be more than happy to help.
Call you up.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.